My girlfriend cheated and filed a fake restraining order to dodge a $4,000 debt. But I exposed her lies in court and watched her downfall. My name is Robert, and I'm 34 years old. For many years, I thought I was in a solid relationship built on mutual support and trust. Turns out, I was just a convenient ATM with emotional attachment. I work for a healthcare software company in San Diego, California. The salary is good, and the job is stable. My girlfriend, Vanessa, was 31. We'd been together for years before my realization that she saw me as a fool. We met through a mutual friend at an event, and started dating shortly after. When we met, Vanessa was working in marketing for a tech company. She made decent money, had her own apartment, and seemed to have her life together. She was outgoing and fun. I loved her. We talked vaguely about marriage, about buying a house together eventually, and raising a family. Then, about 2 years into the relationship, Vanessa lost her job due to company-wide layoffs, just budget cuts that eliminated her entire department. She was devastated. Understandably, that job had been a big part of her identity. She started freelancing after that, marketing, consulting, social media management for small businesses, and content creation, hustling for clients, piecing together income from multiple sources. It was unstable and stressful, and the money was inconsistent. I supported her through it. Emotionally first, listening when she vented about difficult clients, celebrating when she landed new contracts, and reassuring her that she'd find stability eventually. Financially, I started covering more of our shared expenses. I picked up her full rent a few times when her income was particularly low, paid for her groceries more often than not, and covered dinners out, utilities, and little things that added up. I didn't mind at the time. A relationship is all about partnership. Sometimes one person needs more support, and you provide it because you trust they'll do the same for you. Then, about 4 months after her layoff, Vanessa asked me for a loan. She brought it up, hesitantly, saying she was really behind on some bills. Her car needed repairs that would cost about $1,500. Rent was coming up, and she hadn't landed enough contracts that month to cover it. She was stressed and embarrassed to ask, but said she needed help. She asked for $4,000, saying it would cover everything, the car, rent, and some credit card bills she'd fallen behind on. She promised she'd pay me back in full once she got her tax refund, which she was expecting in a few months. I didn't hesitate. I told her, of course, I'd help. I transferred the money that night, $4,000 from my savings account to hers. I sent her a text afterward, transferred the $4,000. Pay me back when you get your refund. No rush. Love you. She responded, thank you so much. I promise I'll pay you back in full as soon as that refund hits. You're literally saving my life right now. She included a red heart emoji. Weeks turned into months. Vanessa's freelance work continued inconsistently. I kept supporting her financially by covering more of her living expenses. Then, about 2 months after I'd given her the loan, she mentioned casually that her tax refund had come through. She was excited because it meant she could breathe a little easier. She didn't mention paying me back. I waited a few days, figuring maybe she needed to handle some immediate expenses first. A week passed, still nothing. I brought it up gently one evening. Hey, so now that you got your refund, want to talk about paying back that loan? Vanessa's expression shifted as she got defensive immediately. She said she'd had to use the refund for other things, that she was still behind on bills, and that she'd pay me back eventually but couldn't right now. I said I understood but reminded her I'd asked because she'd specifically said she'd pay me back when the refund came. She got irritated, saying I was pressuring her and that she didn't appreciate being made to feel guilty, when she was already stressed about money. I dropped it. I didn't want to make a big deal out of the situation. But then I started noticing things when I went over to Vanessa's place. I noticed she had a set of new clothes, odd for someone who was struggling financially. This shouldn't have been her priority. I spotted a designer handbag that I knew cost at least $600. From her conversation, I could deduce that she went out with friends multiple times a week. She was spending money like someone who had it while owing me $4,000 and claiming she was broke. At this point, I was disappointed in her for being wasteful. I tried bringing up repayment one more time about a month later. Again, she got defensive, accusing me of being unsupportive and pressuring her during a difficult time. I let it go. It started to feel like I should accept I wasn't getting the money back. Then, about 6 months after the loan, I discovered Vanessa was cheating on me. I found out when she came over to my place and we ordered food with her phone. I mistakenly left the app when the phone was with me and opened a notification message that was up there. The message I saw at the top was clearly not platonic. When I opened it and checked through, there was no doubt what was going on. There were plans to meet up, references to times they'd already been together, alongside photos and videos that were exchanged. I stood there reading through enough messages to understand the situation completely. They'd been seeing each other for at least 6 weeks, maybe longer. When Vanessa was getting ready to go home the next evening, I confronted her calmly, telling her I'd seen the messages. She didn't deny it but got angry instead, as if I was the one who'd done something wrong by looking at her phone. She said our relationship had been dead for months anyway, and that she'd needed attention I wasn't giving her. I was heartbroken to hear this. I told her we were done and that she should pick up whatever property of hers was left in my house. She agreed coldly. As she was gathering her things, I brought up the money. "Before you go, we need to talk about the $4,000 you owe me." Vanessa froze, turning to look at me with a calculating expression. "I don't have it right now." "I know, but we need a payment plan. When can you start paying me back?" She set down the bag she'd been packing. "Robert, you're really going to come after me for money right now? When we're breaking up?" I fired back. "You borrowed $4,000 and promised to pay it back. The relationship ending doesn't erase that debt." Her expression hardened. "I'll pay you when I can. Don't pressure me about it." "I'm not pressuring you. I'm asking for a reasonable timeline." "You're making me feel unsafe," she said suddenly. I blinked, confused. "What? You're being aggressive about this money." "It's making me feel threatened," she replied. "I'm being calm," I said. "I just want to know when you'll pay back what you borrowed." She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. "I need space from you right now. This conversation is making me uncomfortable." Then she left. I stood in the apartment, trying to process what had just happened. The sudden pivot to claiming I was making her unsafe felt manipulative, but I didn't know what to make of it yet. Over the next week, Vanessa moved on with her life. I brought up repayment once more via text, after about a month. "We still need to discuss the $4,000 you owe me. Can we set up a payment plan?" Her response: "Stop harassing me about money. I'll pay you when I can." I told her, "I'm not harassing you. I'm asking for repayment of a documented loan." She responded, "You're pressuring me and it needs to stop." I was getting frustrated but tried to stay level-headed. "This isn't harassment. This is me asking for repayment of money you legally owe me." No response. 2 days later, around 8 o'clock in the evening, I decided to go to her place. I just wanted to talk in person, figure out a reasonable payment plan. I wasn't angry, I just wanted a resolution because there was no way I was forfeiting such money for someone who cheated on me. I knocked on her front door, waited, and knocked again. I could hear movement inside and saw a light on in what I assumed was her room. "Vanessa, I know you're home. I just want to talk about the money you owe me. Can you please come to the door?" Nothing. I knocked once more. "I'm not leaving until we have this conversation. You borrowed $4,000. You promised to pay it back. We need to figure this out." I saw movement in the window of her room. She was there, definitely hearing me, just refusing to come to the door. After about 10 minutes of this, me knocking periodically and asking her to talk, her ignoring me, I gave up and left, frustrated but not worried. I figured I'd try again another way. 3 days later, I was served with legal papers at my apartment, a temporary restraining order filed by Vanessa. I read through it, disbelief growing with every line. She claimed I'd been harassing her for weeks, showing up at her home uninvited, making threats about money, and making her feel unsafe. She'd included a written statement describing me as aggressive and threatening, and attached an audio recording from the night I'd gone to her door. In the recording, you could hear me saying, "I'm not leaving until we have this conversation," in a way that, stripped of context, sounded vaguely threatening. But she had edited it, cutting out the parts where I'd been calm and reasonable, making it sound like I was there to intimidate her rather than just asking for repayment of a legitimate debt. The restraining order was temporary, valid until a court hearing in 3 weeks. During that time, I was legally required to stay away from her. No contact, no going near her home or workplace, no texts, calls, emails, or social media contact. Violation would mean arrest. I sat in my apartment, holding these papers, trying to process what was happening. She'd weaponized the legal system against me, using a restraining order, something meant to protect actual victims of harassment or violence, to avoid paying back money she legitimately owed me. My first instinct was anger. I wanted to call her, text her, tell her this was insane, and she knew it. But I didn't because that's exactly what she wanted, for me to violate the order so I'd face criminal consequences. Instead, I got strategic. First, I gathered every piece of documentation I had about the loan, the original text exchange where she asked for the money and promised repayment, the bank transfer showing I'd sent her $4,000, her text saying she'd pay me back from her tax refund, and screenshots of later conversations where I'd asked about repayment and she'd been evasive or defensive. Everything was organized chronologically in a digital folder and printed out in hard copies. Then I looked through all our communications, texts, social media messages, emails, for any evidence of threats or harassment on my part. There was nothing. Every message I'd sent had been calm and reasonable, asking for repayment, yes, but never threatening, never aggressive. The only thing she had was that edited audio from the one time I'd gone to her door, and even that, in full context, was just me asking to talk about the money she owed. Next, I hired an attorney, a civil litigation attorney who specializes in contract disputes and restraining order defense. I met with her that week and showed her all my documentation. She reviewed everything carefully, then told me I had a strong case but needed to be extremely careful. The restraining order, even though it's temporary and based on false claims, is legally binding, she explained. If you violate it in any way, even accidentally, you'll be arrested. That will hurt your credibility in the hearing. So what do? You follow it perfectly. No contact with her whatsoever. Block her on everything so there's no chance of accidental communication. Let her think she's won. Meanwhile, we prepare for the hearing. I followed the attorney's advice exactly. I blocked Vanessa's number, email, and all social media, making it impossible for me to contact her even if I wanted to. I didn't go anywhere near her home or workplace, didn't ask mutual friends about her, and didn't post anything about the situation on social media. I disappeared from her life completely, just as the restraining order required. But I also filed something of my own, a small claims case for the $4,000 she owed me. California's small claims court allows you to sue for up to $10,000. My case was straightforward. She borrowed money, promised to repay it, and hadn't. I had written documentation of all of it. My attorney helped me file the paperwork, and we included all the evidence, the texts, the bank transfer, everything. Vanessa would be served with notice of the lawsuit separately from the restraining order. Then I waited 3 weeks until the restraining order hearing, letting Vanessa think she'd successfully shut me up. The hearing finally arrived. We met at the county courthouse on a Tuesday morning. Vanessa was there with her own attorney, a woman who apparently did a lot of restraining order cases. I was there with my attorney. The judge, an older woman, called the case and asked Vanessa to present her evidence for why the restraining order should remain in place. Vanessa's attorney went first, claiming I'd been harassing Vanessa for money for months, that I'd shown up at her home uninvited and refused to leave, and that I'd made statements that made her fear for her safety. They played the edited audio recording of me at her door. The judge listened to it and asked, "Is there any evidence of actual threats?" Her attorney fumbled slightly. "Your Honor, the defendant's behavior and tone constitute harassment. He showed up uninvited and refused to leave. That's threatening behavior." "But were there explicit threats made?" the judge asked again. Vanessa's attorney responded. His insistence and refusal to leave created a threatening environment. The judge didn't look impressed but let her continue. They showed text messages where I'd asked about repayment, taken out of context to make it look like I was obsessively contacting her about money. But they couldn't show any actual threats because I'd never made any. Then it was our turn. My attorney stood and calmly presented our case. "Your Honor, this restraining order is being used to avoid repayment of a legitimate debt. Mr. Robert loaned the respondent $4,000 with clear documentation of the loan agreement and her promise to repay. When he asked for repayment, she filed this false restraining order to silence him." My attorney showed the judge all our documentation, the original loan request and promise of repayment, the bank transfer. The full text conversation history showing all my requests for repayment were calm and reasonable. She also showed that I'd filed a small claims case for the debt, proving this was a financial dispute, not a harassment situation. "The audio recording provided is edited and taken out of context," my attorney continued. "Mr. Robert went to her residence once to request a conversation about repayment. He knocked on the door and asked to talk. When she didn't answer, he left. That's not harassment. That's a creditor seeking repayment." The judge reviewed all the materials carefully and asked to see the full text message history, which my attorney had printed out in its entirety. After several minutes, the judge addressed both parties, asking Vanessa if I had ever threatened her with physical harm. Vanessa hesitated before saying, "He made me feel threatened." The judge reminded her, "That's not what I asked." She asked again if I had explicitly threatened to harm her physically. Vanessa responded, "No." Vanessa claimed I kept asking for money and had asked over 3 times in a week. She claimed that when I came to her place, I refused to leave. But since she couldn't establish that I tried to do anything forcefully at her place, the judge was unimpressed. She set down the papers and addressed both parties directly. This court is not the place to settle financial debts or personal arguments. Vanessa, you borrowed money from Mr. Robert with a documented promise to repay. He has every right to seek repayment through proper legal channels, which he has done by filing a small claims case. She looked at Vanessa sternly. Filing a restraining order to avoid paying a legitimate debt is an abuse of this court's protective measures. These orders exist to protect people from genuine threats, not to be weaponized against creditors. The judge reviewed the documents once more, then delivered her ruling. The temporary restraining order is dissolved immediately. Mr. Robert is free to pursue his small claims case without restriction. Vanessa, you are fortunate I'm not imposing sanctions for filing a frivolous restraining order. I suggest you settle the debt you owe before the small claims hearing. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. I felt relief wash over me. Vindication. Vanessa looked stunned. Her attorney gathered papers quickly, clearly wanting to leave. My attorney turned to me. Perfect outcome. Now we focus on the small claims case. I thanked her and watched as Vanessa and her attorney left the courtroom without making eye contact. 3 weeks later, we had the small claims hearing with a different judge. A middle-aged man. I presented my case, showing all the documentation again, the loan agreement via text, the bank transfer, Vanessa's written promise to repay from her tax refund, and evidence that she'd received the refund months ago. My attorney wasn't required for small claims. People usually represent themselves, but she'd coached me thoroughly on how to present. Vanessa represented herself. Her attorney apparently didn't handle small claims cases. Vanessa tried to make it emotional, saying I was trying to control her financially, that the loan had been a gift, not a loan, and that I was using the courts to harass her further. The judge cut her off. Do you have any written evidence that this was intended as a gift rather than a loan? No, she answered. Did you promise in writing to repay it? The judge added. I said I would when I got my tax refund, but... Vanessa struggled to let out. And did you receive your tax refund? The judge fired back. Vanessa was quiet. Answer the question, please. Yes, she said. And how much did you pay Mr. Robert? The judge queried. Nothing, but I had other expenses. That's not relevant to whether you owe the debt, the judge said firmly. The evidence clearly shows you borrowed $4,000 with a written promise to repay. You acknowledged the debt multiple times. You received funds that you specifically said you would use for repayment, and chose not to. He reviewed the documents once more, then delivered his judgment. I rule in favor of the plaintiff. Miss Vanessa, you owe Mr. Robert $4,000, plus court filing fees of $75. Total judgment, $4,075. He looked at Vanessa. You have 30 days to pay in full or arrange a payment plan with the plaintiff. Failure to pay will result in wage garnishment or bank levy. Another gavel bang. I'd won. Vanessa left the courtroom quickly, her face red, clearly humiliated. I felt satisfied. This whole situation had been stressful and frustrating, but justice had been served. 30 days passed. Vanessa didn't pay, didn't contact me about a payment plan, and just ignored the judgment entirely. So, I went back to my attorney and asked what the next steps were for actually collecting the money. She explained the process. I could file for wage garnishment if Vanessa were employed or a bank levy if she had funds in a bank account. Through some basic research, checking her social media, which was still public, I confirmed Vanessa had gotten a full-time marketing job at a mid-sized company, no longer freelancing, which meant she had regular wages that could be garnished. My attorney filed the paperwork for wage garnishment. The court approved it, and the order was sent to Vanessa's employer's payroll department. Starting the following month, a portion of Vanessa's paycheck, calculated based on California's wage garnishment laws, would be automatically deducted and sent to me until the full judgment was paid. She'd have no choice, no way to avoid it. Every payday she'd watch money leave her account and go to me. The garnishment started about 6 weeks after the small claims judgment. I received the first payment via direct deposit from the court system, then another the next month, then another. At this rate it would take about 18 months to fully repay the debt plus the court fees. But I didn't care about the timeline. I cared that she was being held accountable, that she had tried to weaponize the legal system against me and had failed. Her restraining order had been dissolved with a judicial warning about filing frivolous claims. She'd lost the small claims case with a public judgment against her. Now she had to watch a portion of every paycheck go directly to me for the next year and a half. Her plan had backfired spectacularly. I thought about all of this one evening while looking at the latest garnishment payment notification. Vanessa had thought a restraining order would silence me, that it would make me too afraid of legal consequences to pursue the debt, that it would let her walk away from $4,000 she legitimately owed me. But I hadn't broken the order. I'd followed it perfectly, used the time to build my case, gather evidence, and file my own legal action. I'd let her think she'd won, while quietly preparing to destroy her strategy. When we finally faced each other in court, the truth was obvious to both judges. She was the one manipulating the system. I was the one seeking a legitimate resolution to a financial dispute. You don't destroy someone by fighting louder or getting more aggressive. You do it by staying calm, following the rules perfectly, and letting their own lies collapse under the weight of evidence. Vanessa's restraining order attempt is now part of the public record. Anyone who searches her name in the court system will find it, filed and dissolved within weeks as frivolous. The small claims judgment is also a public record, documentation that she borrowed money and refused to repay until forced by court order. Her credibility is permanently damaged in any future legal proceedings. The relationship ended badly. The breakup was painful, discovering the cheating hurt. But at least I got justice for the financial manipulation. At least I didn't let her weaponize the courts against me successfully. At least I proved that staying calm and strategic beats emotional retaliation every time. Looking back, here's what I learned. Document everything, every financial transaction, every promise, every conversation. You never know when you'll need evidence to protect yourself. Stay calm when someone tries to manipulate you. The angrier and more aggressive you get, the more you play into their narrative. By staying measured, I maintained credibility while Vanessa's claims fell apart. Follow legal orders perfectly, even when they're unjust. The restraining order was based on lies, but violating it would have only hurt me. By obeying it completely, I showed the judge I was reasonable, while Vanessa was manipulative. Use the system properly instead of fighting against it. I could have tried to confront Vanessa directly or pressure her through mutual friends. Instead, I used small claims court, the proper legal channel for debt collection. Let people's lies destroy themselves. I didn't need to convince the judges that Vanessa was lying. I just needed to present the truth clearly and let them see the contradictions in her story. Patience wins. It took months from the loan to the final garnishment order, but by being patient and strategic, I got a better outcome than any amount of angry confrontation would have achieved. Some people will try to weaponize anything against you, even systems meant to protect victims. The only defense is to stay clean, stay documented, and let the truth speak for itself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's justice, slow, methodical, inevitable justice. And that's exactly what I got.